Exactly. So today we're really diving deep, like really deep into the world of addiction treatment. We're going for practical advice here, the kind of stuff you actually need when you're facing this whole overwhelming process.
Yeah, believe me, whether you're looking this stuff up for yourself, for someone you love, or if you just think this is interesting stuff, we're going to break it all down, like the essentials, in a way that really gets to the point.
I like that gets to the point because honestly, one of the first things that really struck me reading through all this is how addiction treatment, it's not like a one size fits all thing. Like you really got to understand your own needs before you even look at what kind of treatment's out there.
Oh, absolutely. It's like, imagine trying to treat, I don't know, a broken leg the same way you treat a heart problem. Just doesn't make sense, right? Addiction, it's complicated and it's different for everyone.
Yeah, okay, that analogy, that really makes it clear. So, like, say you have someone struggling with alcohol, right? And then someone else, they're battling opioid addiction. But on top of that, they've also got depression going on.
Oh, right.
Totally different needs, right?
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to talk to a professional, get assessed. They can figure out what level of care you need, whether that's inpatient or PHP or outpatient or even MET.
Okay, whoa, whoa, whoa. You just threw a bunch of acronyms at me like I'm supposed to know what they mean. Break it down for us. What are those?
Right, right, of course. Okay, so inpatient. That's what most people think of when they hear rehab. You're living at the facility, getting care all day, every day. Then there's PHP, which stands for Partial Hospitalization Program. And it's kind of a step down from inpatient. You're at the facility for a big part of the day, but you get to go home at night.
Okay, so it's like less intense than inpatient, but not as independent as.
Outpatient, exactly.
Yeah.
Outpatient is the most flexible. You live at home and just go to the facility for therapy and stuff. And lastly, there's MAT, or medication-assisted treatment, which uses medication, to manage withdrawal, cravings, and help prevent relapse.
You see, this is what I'm talking about. This is so helpful. It's like having a map with different routes, each one for different needs, different situations.
Exactly. It's all about finding the right fit for you. That's
Yeah.
where the addiction specialist comes in. They can look at your situation and guide you toward the most appropriate level of care.
It's like seeing the right kind of doctor for whatever your health issue is, right? You wouldn't go to a foot doctor for a heart problem, right? All right, so we've talked to an expert, got a grip on what we need, know the different levels of care, but now what? We actually got to pick a place, right?
Oh, yeah. This is where it gets real.
And our research really got into this, and honestly, it's way more than just like looking at a fancy brochure.
Right. It's about, like, really understanding how they approach treatment.
Yeah, totally.
Think of it this way. You wouldn't just sign up for a gym membership without, you know, checking out their equipment, what kind of classes they offer, that kind of thing.
True, true. Got to get a feel for the place.
Exactly. Choosing a treatment facility, it's kind of similar. You need to know it's the right fit for you.
Okay, I'm with you. So how do we actually do that? How do we go beyond the brochure and really get down to it? What questions should we even be asking?
Okay, well, first off, don't be shy about asking about what they specialize in. I mean, treating alcohol addiction, it's going to be different from, say, opioid addiction or stimulant addiction.
Okay.
Makes sense, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. You want someone who really gets what you're dealing with.
Exactly. And another big one, ask them about their plan for relapse. Like, what happens if someone relapses during treatment? What about after treatment?
Right, because that's unfortunately a reality.
It is. It's sadly pretty common, so you really want to know they've got a good plan in place.
Yeah, it's not just about getting sober, it's staying sober.
100%. And don't forget about your support system, your family, loved ones. Addiction, it impacts everyone, not just the person struggling.
That's so true.
So find out what kind of resources and support they have for families. Like, do they offer family therapy?
Yeah.
Support groups for loved ones?
Yeah,
That can really make a huge difference.
totally. Okay, so we're getting a feel for their approach, what they offer. But what about credentials? Like, whenever I'm looking for a doctor or any kind of health care, credentials are non-negotiable. Does that apply here too?
100%.
Yeah.
You wouldn't, let just anyone perform surgery on you, right? You'd want a qualified surgeon who knows their stuff.
Right, you want the best, someone with experience.
Exactly. It's the same for addiction treatment. Look for facilities that are licensed, accredited, check out the staff, see how qualified they are, how much experience they've got. Do your homework.
Yeah, it's about trust and knowing they're the experts. And speaking of, healthcare decisions, we have to talk about cost. For a lot of people, treatment just feels completely out of reach financially.
I hear you. Cost is a huge factor, for sure. But here's the thing. There might be more options than you think. Don't be afraid to ask about different ways to pay, like do they have a sliding scale, scholarships, that kind of thing. There are usually ways to make it work.
So don't rule out treatment just because of the price tag. Always worth exploring what's possible.
Exactly. And remember, a higher price tag, that doesn't always mean better care, you know. Focus on the place that feels right for your needs and your budget.
Such good advice. Okay, switching gears a little bit. Our deep dive also went into this whole thing about recognizing the signs of substance misuse early on, like before things spiral.
Absolutely. Catching it early, that's key. The sooner you can address it, the better your chances of a good recovery.
So true. Our sources had this whole list of common symptoms, but some of them were kind of subtle, like neglecting responsibilities or like changes in someone's usual social behavior.
Yeah, those early signs, they can be really easy to miss. It's easy to just brush them off as, oh, it's just stress or whatever, but
Easy to explain away, right?
right. But if you're seeing a pattern, if things just feel off, it's important to talk to someone. It could be a doctor, a therapist, a counselor.
They can help figure out if it's actually substance misuse or something else entirely.
Exactly. They can do an assessment, and help you find the right resources.
Now let's get into the legal side of things a bit. Our source material, it mentioned inpatient versus outpatient rehab, and this question popped into my head, and I'm sure it's on a lot of people's minds. Can you actually force someone to go to rehab?
Oh, that's a tough one. There's no easy yes or no answer, unfortunately. It's tricky. There are laws, but they're different everywhere you go.
Okay, so where do we even start trying to understand this?
All right, so generally speaking, forcing someone into rehab, what they call involuntary commitment, it's an option in a lot of states, but it's usually only when someone's a danger to themselves or others.
Okay, so it's not as simple as saying, hey, you need help, so you're going. There's a whole legal process.
Absolutely. Our sources actually mentioned a few specific laws. There's the Marchman Act in Florida, Ricky's Law in Washington State, Casey's Law.
Wow, there's a whole bunch of them.
There are. And then there's Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 123, Section 35.
Okay, that's a mouthful.
It is. But basically, these laws, they give a way to make involuntary treatment happen, but they all have their own rules and requirements. For example, like the Marchman Act. That one lets someone be held for a short time so they can be evaluated and get some emergency treatment. But Casey's Law, that's more about giving families a way to try and get treatment for someone who might not even realize they need it.
So yeah, it's not like there's one law that covers everything. It really depends on the situation, what state you're in, all of that. Sounds like talking to a lawyer is pretty crucial in these situations.
Oh yeah, definitely. Trying to figure out the legal side of addiction treatment, it's complicated. And you really don't want to try to do that alone. You need a professional to help you through it.
Totally agree. Okay, before we wrap this whole deep dive up, I wanted to go back to something that our source material kept bringing up over and over, getting help from professionals.
They mention it for a reason,
Yeah.
because addiction, it's a medical condition, it's complex. Just like you wouldn't try to treat heart problems or diabetes by yourself, you shouldn't try to deal with addiction all on your own either.
So true. And they mentioned some resources like SAMHS and NAI. What are those again?
All right, so SAMHA, that's the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. And NIA is the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism. They're both fantastic resources for finding treatment centers, support groups, all kinds of information about addiction that's backed up by research.
Perfect. And we'll make sure to put links to those in the show notes so you don't have to scramble to write them down. Okay, for a final thought here, I wanted to leave everyone with something that really hit home for me while going through all this information. Our sources, they talked about how expensive addiction can be long-term, not just financially, but the toll it takes on your life, and how that's usually way more than the cost of treatment.
That's such a good point. It's easy to get hung up on how much treatment costs up front. But when you really think about what could happen long-term if you don't get help, missing out on work, health problems, legal issues, relationships falling apart, it puts things in perspective.
It makes you realize that paying for treatment, it's really an investment. You're investing in your future or in the future of someone you care about.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more.
Wow, this has been a super informative deep dive. We covered a ton. Hopefully everyone listening feels like they have a better handle on addiction treatment now, how it all works.
I hope so too. And remember, knowing is half the battle, right? The more you understand your options, the better prepared you'll be to start on the road to recovery.
So true. And listen, if you're listening to this right now and feeling overwhelmed, like you don't even know where to turn, please reach out to those resources we mentioned. SAM, HSA, NIA. You don't have to go through this by yourself.
And keep talking about it. Talk to your doctor, your friends and family, a therapist, whoever you trust. There's help out there.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Until next time, keep learning, keep asking questions, and take care of yourselves.